Here we go. Okay, boss. You're gonna have to be the boss because it looks like you're absolutely nailing all the stuff you're doing. Um, I'll let you take the floor, take the microphone, speak. You are a speaker, so go for it.
What would you like me to say, Alex?
That's a good question. I mean, we'll start off with who you are, really.
Okay, my name's Izzie Miller, and I have a bit of an obsession with self-development, self-improvement, growth, progression of any kind. But I used to be quite positive, but I'd also let the world affect how I felt. So one minute I could be really positive, and the next minute something would go wrong and I'd be in tears, or if something like really, really bad happened, like I grew up in quite an abusive household. Not a, There was a lot of violence, both verbal and physical. Wasn't the easiest thing to grow up in, and then various things happen. I mean, we all have difficulties in our life, but through some of those, I started to see myself as a victim, and it just ruined everything. I lost my job, so I lost my flat, I lost my relationship, I lost two of my best friends momentarily because I was just a mess, and I lost about a lot of weight because I used the gym to distract me from it, and to sort of fight against it, but without actually healing from the situations. And a few years on from that, I realized, like, you can choose to play the victim, you can choose to see yourself as at the mercy of what the world does, or you can choose to see the world in a way that serves you. And since I started doing that, not forcing positivity, but choosing how I respond to things rather than just reacting in the way that society says you should react to stereotypically negative situations, my world has literally just changed. So I've now quit my 9 to 5 when I realized all of this, and found myself suddenly downloading TikTok that I've been so against sort of downloading. I thought it was all dancing, pointing to the screen, which, if that's you, cool, awesome, but it just wasn't me. And then I found that I could sort of get my message across there. People reached out wanting one-to-one coaching. That I always wanted to do group stuff, and that's still my goal, but people want alternative perspectives and, you know, want to feel the way that I feel. That kind of opened up a new door. So I now go into schools, universities, talking about mental well-being, a bit of gender equality, bits like that, and working one-to-one with people. But hopefully a big project coming soon in the next year that will hopefully creating a brand around that I think should help people. So yeah, that's a bit of an overview.
Fuck yeah, that's super cool. Like, we've all got a story, right? And you've got to have gone through some sort of cave and out the other side to then figure it out, and now you can see life through a different set of eyes, or through a different lens. That's really cool. Like, going into schools and speaking to the next generation, that is fucking cool.
Well, it's a proactive approach to mental health, you know, like the government, this is no criticism at all.
No, you say what you want.
There's so much focus on a reactive approach. So when people need support, and that's why counselling services and stuff are so overwhelmed, and there's waiting lists are so long. So when people are in a dire situation, you know, there are a lot of places to get support, speak to someone. But what if we were actually to tackle it proactively and teach people how, like, why they should love themselves? Like, stop focusing on the things that you don't like. Yeah, there are things about myself that I don't like. I have a freaking, like, massive double chin, but I prefer to focus on the things that are actually going to make me feel better, because when I feel better, I'm nicer to everyone else. Therefore, other people feel better. And so I think it's just, if you can go into schools or universities when they're at an age where they're being influenced potentially negatively by things like social media, or, you know, seeing red pen all over their schoolwork and thinking they're not worthy, they're not great, you know, comparing their bodies to other people's bodies, you can then go in and show them an alternative view of the world that makes them feel better. be more motivated and believe in themselves and other people, be less judgmental, then the potential that has to change the mental health pretty much epidemic at the minute, I think is huge.
100%. Like, but I think everything in society is constructed around being reactive. You know what I mean? Like, you just look at Western medicine. We like to compare the two of Eastern and Western medicine, right? Like, Western medicine is take a pill once you develop symptoms. Eastern medicine is let's try and fix it before you develop symptoms. Like, it's going to take a little bit longer, granted, but you know, it's more sustainable and it's going to last for a longer period of time. And I think I'm a thinker, right? And I think I've go down the same rabbit hole as yourself, and I think that's where it's come from. So we're literally like, all right, I broke my leg, but I've like ripped a little bit of soft tissue along the way. Oh, cool, put a plaster on it.
Yeah.
Like, well, why am I putting a plaster on it? Because you're bleeding a little bit. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm bleeding, but I got a broken leg. So what am I going to do about it? I'm like, oh, no, don't. That's tomorrow's problem. That's, future Alex's problem. You're like, oh my God, you're literally taking like one little thing that could be a minor issue and you're just allowing it to fester, right? And, you know, like kids is a massive fucking thing for me, right? Simply because I say quite a lot as like every problem in the world comes from like a broken boy, simply because they are usually the ones who inflict it on other people, which then breaks little girls and then, you know, breaks older people and blah, 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 and they go on and become pretty difficult adults. And you see it all the time, especially back home, and in the sense of these young lads are getting tired with a brush of you're a criminal, you're aggressive, you've got anger management, you've got whatever. And you're just like, wait, hold on a minute. Like, they're a fucking kid. How are they supposed to know these things? You know what I mean? We're not taught them how to deal with whatever emotional feelings going on inside. And now we've just tied them with a label that we label adults with, which doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, and you just hit it the nail on the head. We give them labels. We give labels. People, individuals who are, well, you're fluid no matter how old you are, but especially at that age, to give someone a label, whether it's anxiety, depression, anger issues, difficult, anxious, stressed, these labels, they then identify with them. And yeah, sometimes a label is helpful because it allows you to then find others who are experiencing the same symptoms. But again, that's it. They're symptoms. It's not part of your identity.
Would you go against labels?
Well, not always. That's what I mean. Like I used to have my form of stress. This happened when I was about 14, 16, something like that. The way that I would demonstrate that is that I would pull out my eyelashes, my eyebrows. I had no idea why I was doing this. I Googled it and I realized, I discovered it was something called trichotillomania, which is where you pull out lots of people do it to their hair. So there's a lot of bald. I had no eyebrows, no eyelashes at one point. And that really helped because I was like, oh, there's actually a word for it. It's not really known by a huge amount of doctors and not really something that's been researched as much because I guess it's more rare. And maybe seen as sort of a form of self-harm, although, you know, not as, what's the right word? Extreme, yeah. But that helped me find other people by using that word. But I didn't think I had, for that brief period of time, I did have trichotillomania, that's, you know, but at the same time, if it's something like, you know, I've experienced depression before as well, but I think I was at the age where I had that, where I knew that it wasn't part of who I was because I'd been something, I'd been happier before. But I think if that's sort of where you grow up in and you've never known yourself to be anything different, like you're a kid who's a bit troubled at school and causes lots of fights, if you're then called difficult at that prime early stage and you believe you are a difficult kid, and then you use that as part of your identity because it makes you different or it makes you stand out, it means you get attention because you're the difficult one. So I wouldn't say fully anti-labels, like even LGBTQ plus community labels are really, they help them feel part of a community. And that's a way of finding other people. So I think it's working out whether a label serves you or is making you, isn't serving essentially.
Yeah, that's a really good way of going about it, I think, and being able to assess whether it's going to help you out in the long term and you feel safe because of it, or you're going to end up playing into that label, right? Like, I can use myself for example as a very aggressive kid. Like, there's a lot going on, and naturally the first reaction a little guy does is rip its head off. You know what I mean? Well, if you rip its head off, it can't hurt you because it's fucking dead. And I know for a fact if you'd have gone back in time and you'd been like, you got anger management or you're a problem, I'd have turned around and been like, well, I'll show you a problem. You know what I mean? So I'm grateful for, my mom and like my dad of basically just saying, yeah, you're just a kid. You need to fucking figure this out. And, we're going to help you along the way. But I know for a fact, if you would have turned around and given me a label, I would have played into it and I'd have been that difficult guy.
Yeah. Yeah. It was interesting. It got to the point where about 4 or 5 months ago, so 2 years ago, I had 2.5 years ago, I had experienced something that was really challenging for me. I didn't know how to get over it. That's what I saw myself as a victim, and really took a while to heal from that, like a year. And a similar thing happened, quite similar, happened about 5 months ago. And when I told my mom that it had happened, actually, I don't think I did tell her, and she wanted to talk to me about it because she knew it had happened. I texted her that it had happened rather than called her. And I didn't want to call her because I knew she'd say, oh, Izzie, I'm so sorry. And I didn't want to be treated like it was a bad thing. I wanted to see it as, because I knew that if someone made me feel like I was the victim of a scenario, even though some people love sympathy, but if I got into that sympathy victim mindset, I would spiral down. Yeah. And so for me, it's really important that I needed to get in there early and sometimes that's useful. I think it's important to know if you are going to spiral down, and it's in those situations you can give yourself maybe, okay, I'm going to sit on the couch and eat ice cream for the evening, nice. Or I'm going to take the week off work because it's just been a lot going on, or I'm going to go to the gym a bit. But it's understanding the best way for you to deal with something. And so it was really interesting for me to have the same situation 2 years later and see how I could respond differently to it.
That's fascinating. It's kind of like, history repeats itself, and what are you going to do about it? Are you going to react in the same way, and it's like ultimately you're going to be in the same position as you were 2 years ago? Or you're going to be like, well, you've done a fuck ton of growing in the last 2 years. Like, now prove it. You know what I mean? You've done a good talk. Now it's time to walk up and down.
Exactly. And I've been saying this quite a bit in the last couple of weeks. Throw me a mental curveball, like a life curveball every 6 months, just so I can see where I'm at mentally, and then I can see where I need to improve. But if I melt down, or if I see it as a growth, or if I melt down but quick, I think when you get presented with a really challenging situation, you can see first of all how you respond straight away, but also how quickly you bounce back. And it's not necessarily right or wrong, but it shows you, it highlights where you could get better. So that's something that I've been saying recently, just so I can sort of see where I'm at, and if what I'm working on every single day through the strategies that I use are actually working.
Are they working?
I think so, yeah.
Fuck yeah.
It seems to be the case. Yeah.
What's your initial reaction to things? Do you go like super like fight and you're like, holy shit, let's burn down the houses, let's get super anxious, like super like let's go? Or do you go the other way and be like, whoa, let me think about this, I'm a little bit low frequency brain, like sit down and kind of get a bit down in the dumps? Like, what's your initial reaction to things?
Depends on the situation. But I think I've noticed I'm quite introspective, and I'm quite future focused, but I also journal quite a bit, which allows me to look back at the past, but from a sort of a detached sense, so I can see how I responded to things. And I think there's two ways of dealing with something in a better way. Either when the problem happens, you don't even see it as a problem. Okay, now let's start with the other way. The other way is something happens, you might get a bit like feel yourself getting angry or feel yourself getting emotional, but then you can think, okay, right, I'm going to dig really, really deep, find out how this could possibly serve me. Like, I'm really struggling, like this is really difficult, but I'm going to dig deep. And when you do that enough times, when the problem occurs, you don't even necessarily see it as a problem. You just see it as like, oh, my train's been cancelled, but like I really need to get through some emails, so that's great. I'm going to do, like, I know that's a really simplistic example, but as a starting point in general, I think if you practice when a problem comes up or a difficult situation, thinking, okay, even if you're crying your eyes out, how could I possibly be thankful for this in 5 years' time or whatever? If you do that enough times, then when anything goes wrong and someone else would normally get really angry, really frustrated, or just give up, you don't. You only see it as a way to grow. But for me, I mean, if it's near the time of the month, then yeah, my way of handling things, I might be a little bit more emotional, but I've got so practiced at externalizing myself, my thoughts, and challenging my thoughts, working out what's the thought, what's the fact. So if I'm feeling anxious about something, okay, well, why am I feeling anxious about it? If I have someone in my life who's really, really, yeah, this is a good example. Someone in my life who's really, really challenging, but I rely on, she's a big part of my lifestyle, and she can see red, she can suddenly flip. So all the time it's walking on eggshells, and a couple of times when she flips, it's so scary, and I find myself like either angry at something she said or literally shaking. And I do not get angry. There was one time about a few weeks ago, and my hands were literally shaking, and I had to hang up. I was like, because I was on the phone at the time with her, so that I'm really sorry, I need to go. And my whole body was just couldn't work out what this was. So once I'd calmed down a little bit, I thought, right, Izzie, why has this person made you feel like, why are you responding in this way? You haven't chosen necessarily to feel this way, but why is your body reacting in this way to what she said? Or like, and I think I boiled it down to the fact that I don't necessarily feel safe, but it doesn't matter what the reason is. It's working out what the reason is, and then realizing, well, actually, like, I am safe. Like, I have, my best friend lives next door. I am perfectly safe, but for some reason, I've got it in my body, in my head, that I'm not safe. And that works for anything. If someone makes fun of you at school, or you fall over at the gym, right? If we're talking, let's relate it to you. If you fall over at the gym and everyone watches and you feel really embarrassed, well, why do you feel embarrassed? Realistically, like, why do you feel that way? And is it valid? Like, do you need to feel that way? And sometimes just understanding it is enough, and it allows you to accept the situation. But sometimes it also allows you to think, well, hang on a minute, I don't want to feel embarrassed. Like, so what? I fell over. Like, at least I'm at the freaking gym,
So I did a recent poll, right, of like, tell me your best piece of life advice you've ever received. And someone in the gym turned around and was like, embarrassment is a choice. And honestly, that's fucking gold. Like, if you'd have given me 1,000,000 years to be able to come up with that, I would have come up with it. You know what I mean? That is absolutely gold.
Yeah.
What's yours?
It was big. Pardon?
What's yours?
Life advice. I've kind of got two go-to like phrases that I come back to when I really need them. But the first one is, there is nobody that you cannot be yourself in front of.
Ooh, that's beautiful.
I realized this, and it was to do with the fear of embarrassment. No one can make me feel embarrassed unless I choose to feel embarrassed. But we accept what other people do. We think that that's the norm and that we want to stick within that. But actually, what if we were to just be ourselves and do what we want to do and what we feel is right, as long as we're not hurting anyone, there's no reason. And the three people I use as examples is Dwayne Johnson, physically like potentially intimidating, the Queen, as in hierarchy and station in the world, and grandma, as in just someone, a family member, someone Between the three of them, you can be exactly the same person in front of them. Like, as long as you're not hurting any of them, but intrinsically who you are is not someone who hurts people. That's a result of life experience. But you can be exactly who you are. There's no need to fear your being yourself. So that's been a massive one. So there's times when sometimes intimidation is nice because it gives you a sense of adrenaline, and then a little bit of fear is kind of nice. You can play off that. But if it's fear to the extent that it's holding you back and you're not being yourself, you're changing yourself for someone you like, someone you fancy or whatever, then
it don't work.
Light is fraud on your personality,
Yeah, it don't work. Like,
and I think
you'll have fun for 10 minutes or whatever, fucking 2 weeks, and it won't work.
And it's exhausting.
Yeah.
Trying to be constantly thinking, what does this person want? Because let me tell you, you have no idea what anyone wants. Like, even if they say to you, oh, I'm really into this kind of person, or, say you're prepping for an interview and you're thinking, what should I wear? Like, what do you think the company wants? And you look at the interviewer and you think, oh, well, they're wearing that. Maybe I'm going to copy that. But actually, maybe they want someone completely different. They want someone with a headspace outside of what they already know. So you never know. You can never know what someone wants. The person themselves probably doesn't even know what they want. It's so difficult to know what we want. And sometimes what we think we want isn't actually what we want. So the best thing that you can do is just be yourself. It's just do you.
So I wrote something recently, and it's probably had the most engagement in a while, right? And a lot of people came up to me in the gym and was like, fuck, that kind of like punched me in the face a bit. And it goes about something like, people think they need to know what they're doing and where they're going, but the only thing they need to know is who they are. And literally, like, everyone in every scenario in the world is like, where am I going to be in 5 years? What am I doing? How am I supposed to be doing this? Like, I've got this fucking meeting or whatever, or blah, 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 blah. Just getting burying their head in the sand over some like monetary fucking currency we've put on the internet, which doesn't even exist anymore. It's intangible and buying things to impress people you don't like, with the Will Smith speech. That's beautiful. Of what? But you get to like 80 years of age or whatever age you get to, and you're like, well, I don't really know who I am. And that's why we get those like midlife, quote unquote, crisis, right? I was like, well, no, like, I think the person I am today is different than yesterday. And tomorrow I don't know him yet. I'll wake up in the morning, hopefully, and I'll meet the dude and I'll be like, cool, who the fuck are you? And I've got 24 hours to figure that out. And then it's going to be a little bit different the next day, because I'll take things from this conversation and I'll be different tomorrow. And then I'll take something from a conversation I have someone else and I'll be different the next day. But we just kind of like, we compare ourselves to these predetermined definitions of, 9 to 5, 40 years of age, with a house, a mortgage, 3 cars, 2 kids, a wife, a husband, whatever the fuck it is. I'm like, okay, well, is that what you wanted? Not really. Why did you do it? And it blows my mind why people do it and why people care. Because honestly, hand on heart, I don't give a fuck what people think. Like, I really don't. Like, I have my people and I will help them forever, and I will help anyone on the street, but I don't care what people think. And it blows my mind why people do care, if that makes sense. I'm like, why are you trying to impress them? You don't like them.
I do think as social creatures, I respect that and I believe that, what you've said. But I do think that to some degree, we still hold a tiny desire to fit in. Because if we go back from like to wherever you think that we were created from, where,
Yeah. Yeah. Understood. It's a
Those
very
years ago,
PG way of saying it.
yeah, where however you that we needed to be accepted into that society in order to stay alive,
Yeah.
right? And so it is just embedded into us, the fight or flight, and that's the same for wanting to be accepted. And I think it's a scale, but I do think that almost like even if it's just 2%, of us does want to feel. I think that no matter how confident you are, there is still, and it might just be within a select group of people. It might be your family. You want your family to respect what you're doing. It might not be the entire population of the world, but to some degree, you do want recognition and appreciation and acceptance.
I'll take that.
Something outside. But it's, yeah, as you said, not letting that run your life. And yeah, have you heard about I think it's like the 100 regrets of the dying?
No, go on.
There was a study done of about, like, I don't know the number, but a lot of people who are on their last legs. And this researcher spoke to them and said, what's your biggest regret? And I mean, I can't remember all of them, but I think the top few were not spending enough time with family and loved ones, not doing what I wanted to do. And all of these regrets. And I think it's, if you don't want to get, probably one of my biggest fears is regret. And that's not always not doing something. I think also you can regret doing something, and you don't always know, like, when you're going to regret that until you do it. So I think there's two parts of that. One, knowing, as you said, that we're evolving all the time, day by day. So when you look back at what you did 2 weeks ago, 2 years ago, not feeling an overwhelming sense of, oh my God, did I really post that selfie of myself? That's just so embarrassing. Or did I really waste a year of my life in that job? Because at the time you did what you thought was best, most likely, and you didn't have the life experience that you have now. Your life was different. The scenario, the context was different back then. And it's so easy to think, oh my God, I was so stupid. But actually, you're different now from when you were yesterday, and however many years ago. But then on the flip side of that is envisioning yourself, whether your last day is tomorrow or in 50 years, thinking, what do I wish I'd done? And who is it? The CEO of Apple. I can't remember.
Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs. I think it's him. He talks about, highlights death, and we don't talk about death enough. But I think if you take that with you, keep death sort of in your pocket throughout every single day, so you know that literally, if you're too scared about what someone's going to think about what you're going to do, well, to be fair, you might not be here tomorrow. So
yeah, man.
It's not going to matter then. And I think that's such a powerful thing to take hold of, and that, so then you're addressing not having regrets in the past when you look back at your life, but also preventing yourself from having regrets in the future.
I think that's so powerful, and that's personally something I'll use too. Is like I'll regularly say, like, I'm already dead. They're like, wait, what's wrong with you? Like, why are you thinking so, like, morbid? I'm like, no. Like, if you act like, nothing's ever guaranteed, which it ain't. The next 5 seconds ain't guaranteed. We can predict to a pretty, precise measure, but at the same time, it's not guaranteed. Like, everything's just a theory, right? And if you kind of live that way, it's like, well, okay, I'll just keep going. And if it ends suddenly, abruptly, or whatever, then all right, well, that was what was already written in stone. You know what I mean? And the way I try and think is usually because I don't want to allow my very blonde brain to go down a rabbit hole of the sense of, I'm just going to be like, right, my time's already written in stone. And when I go is when I go. And I'll just keep on living the way I will live with the information I have now. And tomorrow I'll do the same thing. Tomorrow and the next day I'll do the same thing. And if, click your fingers, if that's it, I'm done. I'm like, okay, well, I wasn't meant to reach the end. I wasn't meant to, oh, that was my end. You know what I mean? I was dreaming past my end, and that's okay. I'll be taken wherever else, or whatever you believe, you know what I mean? And I think just kind of, we like to hold everything in our hands, right? As human beings, we're like, we control everything. I'm like, no, we mean nothing. Like, feelings fade. Everything doesn't mean anything. And life is a gray area. And I don't know, it's saying it as pretty abruptly as that makes it feel like super morbid. But that's just kind of the way I think. And then you are freed from the shackles then. You're like free to do whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah. And feelings do definitely fade, you know. There's been, if you're anxious about something in the moment, well, you're not going to be anxious about it 2 weeks from now. Like, you know, you might, they do fade. And yeah, exactly, based on that, of just getting the juice and the zest out of life as it is right now, I've also started to say that, yeah, there might be something you're worried about, but let's unpick that. What are you worried about? What do you think is going to happen? And even if it was going to be the end of the world, this thing might happen and literally might be, well, the actual end of the world. Well, then why are you wasting time worrying about it? If it could be the end of the world, go out and live your life. Just make the most of it, you know? If the worst is going to come, then let's stop thinking about the worst. That's just a waste of time.
Yeah, it's you know, we're not immortal, but we all try and fight it. We waste our life knowing that we could never be immortal, but we waste our life trying to create it. And you're like, wait, hold on a minute. That doesn't make any sense. We know we're not going to get there, but we're going to spend the 80 years we have here, 100 years we have here, 50 years, whatever, trying to get there. But we know it's not going to happen. That doesn't make any sense to me. I'm like, what? Like, just go do whatever you want to do in whatever capacity. You know what I mean? If you want to go get on a plane, get on a plane. You want to like quit your job 9 to 5 and go do something, like go speak to kids, go fucking speak to kids.
But I mean, the thing is with that is then people come back and say, I've learned it's not that easy as just saying that, you know. Everyone's like, well, you're 23 and you don't have any kids or responsibilities, so you can just pick up and leave. And it's like, look,
okay, let's go down that rabbit hole.
Even as a parent with kids, if you're not doing what you love, and your kids, they will, even if you don't think, they can see that you're not doing what you love. Oh, yeah. If that's the case, then you staying in that job because you think that you're protecting them by not giving them uncertainty is showing to them how to be safe, how to be comfortable. It's not inspiring them to go and do what they want to do. Would you want them, for the sake of their kids, or what they think is for the sake of their kids, to be stuck in a job wasting their life doing something that they don't enjoy? We think that we're doing, we think that we're being selfless, but actually if we were just more selfish, we'd be more selfless, because that's how you, and nice, you know, if you're going to a 9 to 5 for your kids, but you get back from your 9 to 5 and you're moody, well, you're not even your best version of yourself around your kids. So you're way better to just take a risk, show them what passion looks like, show them what excitement and love and dedication and hard work looks like, rather than just what the comfort zone is that's actually far from comfortable.
I'm big on leadership, right? Like, leadership will always baffle me. Like, one human being looking up to another human being and kind of like following into battle of, you know, metaphorically speaking, it will always baffle me. But if you have a kid, you're a fucking leader, full stop. Like, they are solely dependent on you. So what are you leading them into when you're like, I'll do a 9 to 5? Well, no, you can do whatever you want to do. You just got to work hard for it. Or what do you do, mom or dad? Oh, I just do whatever because it pays the bills. I'm like, cool. So you're telling me one thing, but you're showing me another. It's like, we have a generation of hypocrites rather than, right, I'm going to go prove to you that you can do this. Like, I'll use my mom, for example, right? She is my number one inspiration, full stop, over everything, before everything, full stop. And she worked in like the education scene for, I don't know, like 11 years or maybe more. Wasn't necessarily the job for her. However, like, grew up with her, just me mum. And I saw her do that. I saw her nanny, so look after some kids. I've never known her to have one job. It's always a double up. As you know, back home, things are rough. And then she studied. So she'd look after me, put me to bed. And I was like a fucking tiny kid. And she studied, and it took her 7 years to do a degree. You know, you're thinking 7 years, that's a long time, probably not going to do it. Nah, like it's too long. And I always go back to that in my head, like no matter what, like you said, why are you getting up at 4:30? Are you fucking crazy? Or getting up at 4 to speak to me at 4:30 or whatever. First of all, I'm grateful for your time. So never mind about that. I'll get up at.
For anyone listening, just to clarify, I'm in England and it's like 4:30 in PM, but Alex is in New Zealand and it's freaking like 4:30 a.m.
Honestly, I've had some fucked up starts in the past like 3 weeks. Yeah. I'm one of those guys that'll just work though.
And this is another thing, like, let's talk about hustle culture, shall we? Let's talk about that.
Go on. I'm interested.
Well, you know, how like 5 years ago, say, yeah, it was all the rage, hustle culture, like, woo, you know, you have to work hard in order to achieve. And then now everyone's putting it down, being like, you need to take time for yourself. You need to, you know, it's not about staying up all night. And you know what? Like, I don't agree with either. I think that there's a balance, and you do what's right for you. So my mum is amazing. She's so supportive. But sometimes I don't want to tell her how busy I am, because I don't want her to say, oh, take it easy, have a rest, because I'll think, oh yeah, I need a rest. But it's all in our mind. It's like with fitness. There's such only you can tell if you're getting burnt out. Only you can. No one else can tell that for you. They can look at your life, look at how much you're doing, and give advice. And you should be able to hear their advice and not be influenced by it. So you have to stay strong in what you think is right. So if you feel, you know, I personally prefer waking up at 5 a.m. And, you know, working hard throughout the day. But I know that if I go to bed at 2 a.m., I can't wake up at 5 a.m.
Yeah, sure.
Now, I go to bed about 11, I wake up at 5. Some people tell me that's not enough sleep, but it works for me. It works for me. It's not because I'm overworking myself. It works for me. Yeah. And that's all that matters. Now, some people like to work through the night. For me, I can't wake up at 5 a.m. and suddenly start working. The point of waking up at 5 a.m. is I get time for myself, even if it's 20 minutes, an hour, 2 hours. Time for myself before other people need me. Time to check in with myself, put myself in the good mood, because if I'm in a good mood, I will be more productive. Whereas if I think, oh no, I want to be a hustler, I'm gonna stay up all night. But if I'm in a terrible mood, then that's self-sabotage. So it's finding out what works for you. And if you hear people say, oh, take it easy, like, you know, hustle culture's bad, then you probably, and you think, yeah, I do need to take time for myself. Yeah, I should take a day off. Like, you might need a day off, but equally, if you do that so often, then you're not going to achieve anything. And the point is, it's with anything, there's not one answer. It's what works for one person, might not work for someone else.
Individuality. And sometimes it's out of necessity, right? Like you get people over here, right? And okay, yeah, we'll go down this. They'll turn around and be like, oh, well, like I took on a role of a head coach in a gym here in Christchurch, right? And I had 2 weeks before we started getting back into the gym and running through the new programming. You had to do like a day in a life bullshit, right? So I was like, okay, cool. Like I'll follow them around with a camera, I guess. That's really weird. Like it's usually just me with my hood up on my laptop for a long period of time. And they're like, why are you getting up between like 2 and 4 a.m.? Like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, you know, work is on my shoulders. A lot of people turn to me and I need to give my best work, and I can't do it in 10 minutes. Like I need a good amount of time to be able to hash this out and create my best work. If it's not my best work, I'm not releasing it, full stop. And it's funny because then you'll have a conversation with people and they're like, oh yeah, like this is awesome, the result or whatever. And I'm like, okay, cool. But do you not see, like, can you not link the two together? You know what I mean? You're like, well, that is because I put in a fuck ton of hours. You know what I mean? Like the book, for example, was 6 years. I'm like, that's because I just kept going for 6 years and trying to figure it out and deleted shit and rewrote it and blah blah blah. I'm like, sometimes you got to do it. Like I've been not had a place to stay twice, so sleeping in gyms, sleeping in cars, like you name it. Just I don't have a roof over my head, and I'm like, well, you've got to fucking hustle. Like full stop. What are you gonna do? Am I gonna cry on the floor of the gym with a fucking empty stomach, cold, and it's dark, and be like, you know what, Izzy? I need some time off. Like, you know what I mean? I'm burning out. Like, I'm probably not that good mentally. I was like, I don't have a fucking place to stay. No, fucking work.
But could you have done that if you weren't doing something that you loved? Because this is the point. If you're hustling and you're getting burnt out all the time, it's probably if what you're doing gives you energy, then yeah, you still might get burnt out if you're doing back to back and getting no sleep.
Yeah.
But what you're doing and working hard towards needs to be giving you energy. So I can be back to back all day and with coaching calls, with traveling across the country to go and do a talk. But I feel exhausted, but I don't feel drained by the end of the day. And I think there's such a difference. And I think it's when you can tell whether you're being exhausted at the end of the day or drained, it shows whether you're hustling for something that's worthwhile for you or not. Like you sleeping on the floor, like, you know, think about Elon Musk. Like I've been researching him a bit lately, and he said at some points he sleeps on the floor in SpaceX. And he could go and get a hotel, he could do whatever, but he has such a higher purpose, such a passion for what he does that it doesn't matter. But if he was sleeping on the floor in McDonald's, he'd probably think his life was rubbish and hate everything. So does what you're hustling for fuel you? Does it fill you back up? Do the achievements make it worth it? Or are you just hustling to be burnt out and feel crappy, get a paycheck, but not love what you're doing?
You can run on the spot all you like, right? Don't focus on moving, focus on progression, focus on where you're going. Like, I don't want to run on a treadmill. If I'm going to run, I'll run outside, although I don't run. That's a bad analogy. But you know what I mean? Like I'm not going to fucking stand on the treadmill. I'm going to look at a wall and it's going to be the same wall I'm looking at for the next 30 minutes. I'm like, I'm not. I'm going to get on the pavement. I'm going to move. Like, that's what it is. Focus on progressing rather than just aimlessly moving. I'm like, yeah, I'm working. Like, no, like you've got hours, yeah, but you're not being productive.
But also, like, right now I'm staring at screens. I'm staring at two screens. I've been staring at screens for quite a bit of the day, which is the same as what I was doing if you compare the facts to when I was in my 9 to 5. But at the end of my 9 to 5, I felt drained. I felt I had no time for me. I didn't feel like I'd express my personality anyway. I didn't really feel great. Whereas now I've done the same thing. I've stared at screens, but what I'm doing is different, and this fuels me and this makes me excited. And so I've done the same amount of, like, if you saw what I was doing, same amount of work in potentially the same place, but I feel very different and I've grown in a way that I didn't before.
That's a beautiful thing to see, because you see it fired up and it's fucking awesome. You know what I mean? Like, someone doing what they want to do is just like, oh fuck yeah, I just want to sit back and watch because this is cool.
Yeah, and same for you. Like, you know, you're 10 times more attractive when you're doing what you like, 10 times more attractive when you're more confident, when you get who you are, or at least when you're trying to find out who you are. Like, rather than
100%. Like, and everyone's been the other way around, right? Everyone's been super like down in the dumps and they've not really been doing what they want, and like you feel like a piece of shit.
Yeah.
You're like, well, I'm wasting my time, whatever. And then the next thing you know, like the erratic human brain takes you down a rabbit hole and you're like, whoa, how did I get here? Or you could do the adverse. Yeah, you might have to work a little bit more, or you might have to do 2 jobs for a while. Like, unfortunately, mate, you know, some people aren't born with a silver spoon in their ass and they can't just like rely on whatever money that they have somewhere. I'm like, sometimes you got to work for it, mate. You know, and like, take fucking me as an example. If I can do it, like anyone can do it. Like, I know you hear that all the time, but legit.
Even money doesn't give you more hours. You know, someone with tons of money still needs to wake up at 4:30 if they want to get as much done as you get done, you know? So, screw that. If you like, go, if you want more money, go and, as you say, burn yourself out working really hard for like X amount of days, weeks, months, and then use that money. But at the end of the day, it's passion that burns through. It's all, you know, success is about communication, because anything you're trying to succeed in is a result of potentially like selling something or a service or giving, and that's your communication. So if you've got money but no ability, whether it's passion or confidence or authenticity, then no matter how much money you have, you're going to have a pretty difficult time.
So that's yes, I 100% agree, right? And I go back to the first conversation I had with the coaches, right? Basically, it was via Zoom? No, I think it was in person. I got brought in, right, and people kind of knew my face, but didn't really know what I'd done and whatever, and that's fine. And I don't do it for that. And I'm just like, okay, cool. How do I create this culture where people give a shit about what they do? You know what I mean? And like, and having fun working, because at the end of the day, that's what we want. We want them to have fun, because then they look after people. So I look after the coaches, they look after the people, like full stop. And I'm like, all right, I want you to empty your fucking cup in every single class. Every hour that you're in the gym, I want you to drain every drop of water from your cup. And I kind of gave it a second. They're like, whoa, oh my God, this guy's wanting me to take a sledgehammer and hit myself in the face. I turned around, I was like, however, after every class, I want your cup to be full again, simply because you love what you do so much that by draining yourself, that's probably not the right word, but I'm going to go with it, draining yourself or emptying your cup then fills your cup back up. And if that doesn't happen, you come to me and something's wrong and we fucking change something.
Mic drop. Exactly.
Passion is free, mate. Passion is free.
And that's what I'm saying. If I was a career coach, I'd do the same thing. Like, you know, if what you're doing isn't filling you up after you've emptied everything, then let's have a chat and work out why and what needs to change.
Yeah, and like as people in position of leadership like ourselves, it's our job to be able to do that. It's our job to be able to navigate and add some like people skills and do a little bit of HR if you have to, or just kind of like, you know, pull on the strings and reposition the ships. I've just been like, cool, like this person is getting 80% back, but I'm taking 100%, because I'm telling them to give 100%, because I'm like, this place is going to be the fucking best place, full stop. But if they're giving 100% and getting 80% back, that's, you know, I'm not a maths guy, but that doesn't add up. I'm like, cool. So this person needs something. And then you just get to know people, right? When you're like, what do you want? What do you need? Like legit, hands down, tell me the fucking truth. Even if it's like, I want to leave this place, I'm like, cool, it's my job to help you do that. Not by giving them the boot. It's probably, again, a bad example.
Even so, like, if you get given the boot, well, it wasn't right for you, you know? Like, there's a different way of looking at it. It's an opportunity to go somewhere else. You've already tried one place, you go somewhere else. Or you can look at it as a victim. I've been kicked out. My life sucks. I'm useless. How do you want to feel? And which perspective is going to make you feel that way?
That just makes me laugh because, all right, I'll tell you a story. I was there for in the space of 10 months last year, I got fired 3 times.
Wow.
Yeah, I got it was a bad year, put it that way. Well, I get fired a lot, put it that way. I'm one of those dudes that if something doesn't sit right on my moral compass, I'll ask a question. I'm like, all right, I want to hear your perspective. But I've given you the time of day and heard your perspective. You're going to fucking hear mine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you're going to give me the respect to hear my words too. And I'll always go second, right? And if it's like, no, I don't want to hear it. This is the way it is. I'm like, that doesn't sit well with me. Like, you can't do that. And one of them was just fucking bullshit. I was just like, hey guys, like, you know, with my experience around the world, not just within one place, like with a different demographic of people, this is probably not the way you treat people. And how about this side? Can we talk about maybe doing it this way? No. I'm like, okay, I'll go now. And then, they gave me the boot. But anyway, it's one of those ones. 10 months, 3 3 times. It was a good year.
Wow. Learn a lot about yourself.
Yeah, I was back living in my car and I was like, fuck, I'm on the other side of the world, like in my car. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm doing this again. But it's fine. Everything's fine. Have you seen that meme? Where like the dog sat in like the burning building. It's like, everything's fine. I'm fine.
Yeah. You have to send it to me afterwards.
Oh, it's fucking hilarious. Like I go back to it regularly. I'm just like, yep, everything's fine. I'm fine. Everything's okay. Because every problem in your life, right, seems like you're firefighting.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you put one out, something else on fire.
Yeah, and it's just thinking I can see it in that way, or I can see it in a way that can make me grow.
So what's your advice for people on self-development? Because that's a fucking hard thing to be able to embark on. You know, a lot of people don't want to do it because it's scary.
Yeah, I'd say journal. Try and journal. Like the good thing about a journal as opposed to a diary is you don't have to do it every day, and you don't feel guilty by looking at the pages that you've missed when you journal as opposed to writing a diary. And it just means like if you're in a situation questioning, if you get strong negative emotion that you don't want to feel, you feel like crap, like ask yourself, well, why is this? No. And then, you know, it might be that you realize the reason why you're feeling depleted of all energy, you actually realize, crikey, when I look back at what I've done over the last week, no wonder I'm this tired. Or if someone at work has really made you feel frustrated, you can write about that shit and think, well, why is this person making me feel frustrated? And it's just realizing that you can choose how you want to feel at any given moment. So the two, I'd say, I mean, at the end of the day, the reason why we buy stuff is to feel happy, like it's to feel better, it's to improve our lives. Well, if our response to things comes from our brain, then let's work on our brain and how we see things. So if you have no money, but you think that the newest iPhone is going to make you feel better, then why don't we just change your brain so that you actually find gratitude and appreciation in something less expensive that you can afford? You know, that's just the first example that comes to mind. Rather than agonizing over the fact that you can't have what you want. So being able to waking up and writing down 5 things that you're grateful for or happy about, even if it's coffee, that gives you a sense of purpose.
Always grateful for coffee.
Cheers to that with mine.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, 2 things, if you're going to go away with 2 things to repeat over and over to yourself is 1, there is no one that you cannot be yourself in front of, even yourself. You can be, sometimes we're not even ourselves among ourselves because we're too embarrassed by ourselves. And second of all, this is what I say, I realize that this is how I see the world, that a lot of people don't understand. I've got to a place where I refuse to see the world in a way that does not serve me.
Wow.
Because I don't see and sometimes I do, but sometimes I will get annoyed about something, but it's being conscious, I'm annoyed about this. Do I want to feel annoyed about this? Or do I want to see the world in a way that serves me? If so, then I'm going to find a way to see a positive in this scenario. And if I can't, then I'm just not going to have an opinion about the scenario. I'm going to externalize myself, almost see it as a movie screen and just not react to it, or let myself react to it, cry about it for an hour and then move on. So there's no one that you cannot be yourself in front of, and I try to refuse to see the world in a way that doesn't serve you.
I mean, perception is reality, right?
100%.
You know, like, yeah, the object or whatever might not change, but at the end of the day, like, the way you look at it will change day to day, minute to minute, and whatever or however you look at it, that's now your reality. I love that that one of like, you can't be yourself, or there's no one you can't be yourself around. I love
exactly
that.
Yeah, it's just, you know, it's just something to call upon. I used to use quotes reactively at university. I had quotes all over my room, and every time I felt horrible or something had gone wrong or someone had said something to me or whatever, I'd go back, read the quotes and be like, yes, I can be myself, like everything's fine. but actually I've started to use them proactively. So before I go into a scenario that could potentially give me those feelings, thinking, no, like there's no reason why I cannot be myself on this podcast. There's no reason I cannot be myself in this interview. There's, you know, setting myself up for success rather than changing my failure, I guess, to success.
Yeah. First of all, like, yeah, always be your fucking self in front of me. You know what I mean? Like, that's it. No, like, first of all, I'm no one to impress. Second of all, it's a conversation. You know what I mean? Like, don't fucking give me some sort of character that you've created. Like, no, I'll ask you a question, like, and you'll ask me a question, and I'll meet you with that honesty, right? And just like, nah, there's no, like, there's people for coaches and there's coaches for people, and I take that outside of the gym in the sense of, like, you got to find your people, and some people just aren't going to gel. Like, unfortunately, that's just the way it is. There's like nearly 8 billion of us on this frigging planet. Like, not everyone's going to like you, right? And I could probably write you a list of a lot of people that would turn around and be like, that guy's a prick. I'd be like, well, whatever, you know, okay, cool. I'll just keep living the way I live. Like, and like I said at the start, as like, everyone in my life could turn around and be like, you're an asshole. And I'd be like, cool, I'm probably going to still wake up tomorrow and do the same thing.
The more hated you are by people, the more you're evidently out there, and there's going to be people that love you, there's going to be people that hate you when you put yourself out. The only way to not have negative, like, people not like you is to do nothing, say nothing, and be nothing. You're always going to be hated. And at university, I was in a position of leadership, and I focused on the people that I knew wanted someone else in that position, and so I did not do a good job. But now, you know, people on social media or whatever, there'll be some people who respond and they're like, well, you know, and they'll say all kinds of things, but that says more about them than it says about me. And, you know, there's someone else that I've connected with who on social media who's doing quite well, and there's suddenly sort of their platform's grown, and they started focusing on the negative comments they were getting. And then it's like, well, hang on a minute. When you read these negative comments, you're scrolling past all the people that are saying, I really needed to hear this. Thank you. You know, that's actually, you know, I don't know what I would have done today if I hadn't seen this, or, you know, it focus on the positives rather than negatives. But again, if it's up to us how we respond to something, then the same goes for other people. If you've upset someone, or someone's upset or angry based on something you've done, then they should have the maturity and the sense and the ability to say to you, look, can we talk about this? Or I get that you're trying to come from a good place, but I don't really agree. Rather than shouting about it, screaming about it, telling you you're useless, telling you you're horrible, telling you you're doing a bad job, like, that's coming from them not being in a good place. And when you can realize that, trolls and haters and people who try to push you down, you see that they are in a place of weakness. Because if they're in a place of strength, then they wouldn't be doing that. And ultimately, do you want the good opinion? Do you want someone to like you who's in a good place themselves or in a bad place? And personally, I want the good opinion of people who are confident in themselves, who have their shit figured out, rather than the people who are judging me when they're judging themselves at the same time.
Yeah, and I don't get it. It's like, we've lost the ability to agree to disagree. Like we said, we all look at the world differently, and that's the point. You know, hey,
what's wrong with the debate?
Yeah, and like, even if you get to the end of it, right, and like, I hear your point, because I'm giving you the time and I'm asking questions to understand your side. However, I still disagree. Like, that's a fucking valid ending to that debate. You know what I mean? Like, that's fine.
All you need to be able to do is see from a different perspective. That's the one thing that I've been so proud of myself for being able to do, seeing from other perspectives. I'm vegan. I don't care if you eat meat. I don't care. I'm not getting the vaccine. I don't care if you have the vaccine. You do you. We can have a debate about it if you want, but it's nothing to do with you or your personality. It's just a choice that you've made, and I respect you for your choice. Like, I'm going to make mine. You're going to make yours. Like, and it's cool to see why you're doing yours. What's your reason for that? But I'm not going to tell you it's the wrong choice, because who knows what's the right choice? All we can do is do what feels best for us.
Do whatever you want to do, right?
Yeah.
Ultimately, like, do whatever the fuck you want to do. Like, no one else has got any power over you. You know, gun to your head, there's still a decision. I know that's super, super extreme, but there's always a choice. There's always yes or no.
Yep.
What would be the worst advice you've ever heard?
Ooh, great question. That's really difficult. I mean, what's the worst advice? Do you know what? I think I'm almost too much of an optimist and too much seeing on the serving side of life that my brain almost blocks that kind of stuff out. Like for some, the first thing that's coming to mind when you said that, and it's not to do with advice, but when I was younger, I always used to be told that I was too emotional.
Really?
Yeah. And I don't know why that's come to mind when you asked that question. But
it's frowned upon, right?
I think there's a degree, there's a balance between being resilient and being walked over because you're resilient. And if you can feel emotion, you can be more compassionate. So, you know, there's a balance. And I really couldn't actually tell you right now what's the worst piece of advice I've ever been given. I don't think, because my brain just doesn't seem to go there anymore. I only take what resonates with me. But I think almost like that's the point. Things will resonate with different people. So things will hit home with different people. You don't need a million quotes. You just need the one you can take with you, one that is working on the things that you most need to work on. So the quotes that I've, said, they might not resonate with somebody. They may not, work for someone. And that's the point. It's not one, taking one piece of advice and rolling with that. It's working out what you need and holding on to that.
And maybe someone's going to quote Izzie Miller.
There you go. I do hope so.
No,
it helps people. If it doesn't, then there's someone else out there that will help inspire and motivate you. And that's why. So I do a bit of, as I said, a bit of one-to-one coaching. And the point is, we have a 30-minute chat to start with. If like a free before they say they want to do coaching, because I might not be the coach for you, And if you turn around and say, oh, I don't really align with what you're saying, I am not offended. I am not offended. And equally, I might say, I don't think that I can help you. It might be because they're on medication or whatever. And this, it's too clinical, and I don't, I'm not a clinical psychologist. But it's not getting offended. Like we said, if you're fired from a job, it's not necessarily because you're all bad or unworthy or useless. It just wasn't right for you. And it's learning to be okay with that. Yeah. So anyway, there you go.
I really appreciate that point of view.
It's been great.
I'd probably have to say be realistic is the worst advice I've ever been given.
Yeah.
I'd have to say, because
what's realistic and what's achievable?
Well, yeah, and I go back to realistically, I shouldn't be here.
True.
Still be on the west side of Manchester, like doing whatever I'm doing, being literally the bottom of society.
400 trillion sperm cells and you're here, or however many it is. Even that's not realistic that you'd be here right now talking to me.
There you go.
Could have asked on a podcast. It's so, and what's achievable? Like, I think realistic and achievable is all in one. Like, it wasn't achievable to go to Mars, or, it wasn't. Who's to say what you can and can't achieve? So screw smart goals, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic.
Yeah. You know what's not realistic? Walking into a room and flicking a switch and now there's light. That's not realistic.
Right.
And you're like, wait, hold on a minute. Now it's like, yeah, that's normal for us.
Exactly.
But 200 years ago, that's not realistic. Like getting in a metal bird and flying over the fucking ocean, that's not realistic. But now it's normal. Yeah. Anyway, that's where I go.
Yeah,
mate.
no, I might jump on that, and as my one. Hey, we'll have to do a follow up, and I'll have a think about. We'll do another podcast, and I'll have a think and come back to you. But
Sounds good.
yeah,
I'll hold you to it. I know you're like a fucking super busy lady, so I don't want to hold you any longer. I'm probably taking other people's time, so I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thanks. This has been wonderful. Keep doing what you're doing.
You too.
Yeah.
I'll speak to you soon.
I'll speak to you soon.
All right, take it easy.